Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So today in the shop we've got this Husqvarna 223L string trimmer, and looks like a nice trimmer to me, but the owner of it said that they're going to go with battery powered trimmers and that they didn't want this thing anymore and that it didn't run, which is why they decided to go electric. Let's see what we can do. The starting procedure on this is to turn the choke on, pump the bulb like 6 times, squeeze the throttle, and pull. All right, so it does look like this doesn't want to run. You know, I could take the air cleaner off, spray ether in it and all that, but I just went ahead and ordered a carburetor kit off Amazon for it, because for $15, there's no reason to spend a lot of time on this. Okay, and this thing is pretty dirty. There's a lot of oil that's come out of the exhaust. That's probably from trying to start it. But let's take this thing out and clean it up. That sounds like a good place to start. All right, now that it's cleaned up, let's go ahead and get rid of this fuel that's in it. Okay, and looking down in there, looks like the fuel line's at least hooked up and the filter's on the end of it. So you see that white cloud at the bottom of that, that's water that's in this gas. And that might have come from just power washing it, but I almost kind of think not. So I'll just go ahead and use 40 psi of air and my air gun and blow this off. That'll dry all the nooks and crannies. And a lot of times I just use compressed air to clean things like this, but this thing was so dirty, I figured a power washer couldn't hurt it. This air filter really doesn't look bad, but we've got a new one in the kit, so we'll put a new one in it. All of the bolts on this were socket head cap screws, and they all took a 4mm Allen wrench. So there were only 4 bolts holding this down, but one of them was about twice as long as the others. So make sure you know which hole the long bolt goes in. So I just took a few minutes and looked at everything on this, how it worked and how it hooked up. I even took a few pictures just to make sure that I could get this thing back the way it was supposed to be when I take it apart. I have seen a lot of stuff that people take apart and then they're not quite sure how to get it back together, and that can cause some problems. These hoses all look like they were in good shape, and the kit came with new hoses, so I'm going to go ahead and replace them anyway. But I was kind of hoping maybe I'd find a hose that either had a hole in it or was disconnected. But this thing looked like it was in pretty good shape. So this choke lever on this thing, I was a little concerned when I saw it because the new kit didn't come with this. And I've not had very good luck with being able to pull pieces off of the stock components and moving them over to an aftermarket one. But this one, actually, it was an awesome, I mean, I think it's the exact same carburetor. It went right on there. That was nice. So I go ahead and replace the fuel filter, all of the fuel lines, and the little purge bulb, because all of that stuff came in that kit for $15. It actually was quite an amazing deal, I think. So this kit came with 2 different size hoses, and then I found out that this weed eater uses 2 different size hoses. So all of the hoses were that black rubber size, and that was the bigger of the 2. And then the line from the purge bulb to the carburetor was that narrower inside diameter hose, which is that kind of that yellow clear looking plastic. It's important to get the right size diameter hose on this, because the only hose clamp on this entire weed eater is this one that holds this little fuel filter on. Everything else is just a tight fit, and if you use the black rubber hose where you need to use that clear hose, you know, it's just going to leak. Even this purge button that came with this kit was an exact match. And I've had a lot of those that I've replaced where they're kind of just, they're in where they go, but they don't quite fit right. And they go ahead and work and everything, but it's just a little sloppy. Well, this one was an exact tight fit, and it was really nice. This kit even came with new grommets to go around the fuel line hoses where they go into the tank to seal it off. And that's important because if you hold that weed eater up on edge to like do your edge along your sidewalk or anything like that, or have it out of place for any reason, if you don't have that grommet in there and it's a good seal, you're going to run gas down on a hot motor, and that wouldn't be good. So now we'll go ahead and slide the new carburetor on. And the first thing to do is put the fuel line on it. And then the next thing is, this kit came with 2 gaskets. And there's a gasket between the carburetor and the intake manifold. And we've got to figure out which the right one is. So one of them has 4 holes, one just has 2 holes. Well, the stock gasket was the 4-hole one, but it didn't look like the gasket that had 4 holes. It looked more like the gasket that had 2. But those 2 holes are important. So that's the one we used, and it did work out. Now you've got to put your air box on before you put your carburetor bolts through. And you've got to hold that gasket on at the same time and get everything lined up with that intake manifold. So it just took a little bit of fumbling around, but it wasn't that tricky. You'll be able to get it. So the last thing to do is to put this smaller diameter hose from the carburetor back to that purge button. And I did that with the carburetor already totally mounted and tightened up. The reason I did that was that hose wraps around the outside of that carburetor, so I could get to everything that way, and it's just less things to deal with when you're bolting that carburetor on and dealing with that gasket. Well, now that all the hoses are in place, let's go ahead and snug this down. And I'm not sure what the torque spec on that is, but click, there it is. Now remember, like Terrell says, it ain't the space shuttle, it's a weed eater, folks. The next step will be putting the throttle cable back on. And if you go ahead and just grab a pair of needle nose and then move that throttle, open it a little bit, you can get it worked in there with everything snugged down. And that's also the way I took it off, if that wasn't clear earlier in the video. Now there is a groove that cable has to run in that's part of the air box. It's just a little channel there. And then the final thing is just go ahead and loosen up that cable and pull the sheath back, and there's a place for it to drop into also on that air box. So this weed eater has a foam air filter, and this kit came with 2 little foam air filters, and they were about the exact same size as the stock air filter, but honestly they seemed like they were less dense foam. So I went ahead and stacked both of them together. Hopefully it'll work. I think it will. All right, well, the final thing is this kit came with a new spark plug, so let's go ahead and throw that in for good measure. And we're pulling out a Champion spark plug, and this one we're putting back in came in the kit, and I don't know what it is, but it don't say Champion on it. Oh well, we'll see how it works. All right, well, let's throw the cover back on it. And remember, this thing had 4 bolts, but the bolt that was long goes in that back side by the muffler. The other 3 bolts are the exact same length. So I just used the impact gun to run these screws down. You know, they're fairly long. And then I used the T-handle 4mm to go ahead and do a final snug on them. There we go, we got extra air cleaning. This air filter cover was fairly dirty too. It had some grime in there. So I just went ahead and used the air gun to blow that off. No sense taking it out to the power washer for this. So here's kind of an overview of the tools that we used. And honestly, a 4mm Allen wrench was the #1 tool. Used some needle nose, and I brought that socket around there, but I didn't even use that. And there, of course, is all the used components that we took off. This kit also came with this special screwdriver to be able to adjust that carburetor, which I ended up not needing. And of course, there's no string on the spool, but you know what? For a free weed eater, I'll go ahead and run some string on it. All right, and we are ready to put some gas in this thing and see what we got. I think we're going to be happy. All right, well, I'll tell you what, I like that a lot. So that's the Husqvarna 223L, and I'll tell you what, I think I'll probably get a lot of use out of that. So I like the fact that it's straight shaft. The curved shaft ones, I'm so tall, they're kind of awkward to use. So I like getting out away from you too. So can't beat it, in my opinion. All right, well, I like it a lot. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. It absolutely helps the channel. And we invite you to subscribe to see more. Again, that's the Husqvarna 223L. Put in the comments whether we should keep this and use it around the homestead or if I should sell it. So either one's an option, but I kind of like it. Have a great day and be safe.